Hey, welcome back to Variety Homestead. Today we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to start off with going ahead and then finishing our harvest on our collard greens and maybe some kale, maybe not. And then we're going to take them inside and prep them, and we're going to cook them. So you'll get to see all of that today on Variety Homestead. So what you're looking at here is the collards. To Debbie's right is collards that we direct sowed, and then on the left are some collards that we planted from that grew from seed, but we grew them in the under the grow lights. So it's actually different brands or strains of collards, and you see some yellow leaves and all of that. When we pick these, we're just gonna, pick through the yellow leaves and discard them, give them to the chickens or whatever, and then we will prep these bad boys, take them inside, and cook them. Okay, that was it. So what's left over here, if I can pan over, I'll show you without getting my fingers in the camera. So this is basically what's left of the kale. Debbie cooked some kale soup for storage, or for us to eat actually, the other day, and she picked it out of here. What you see is not much left, and so we're not going to harvest that, maybe a little bit of it. So one thing to understand, or actually a couple of things to understand about cooking these collards, is that it's a little bit of a lengthy process. It's not like you just yank them out of the ground or go buy them at the store, or buy them off of a roadside truck, which they have some of the most beautiful collards I've ever seen, by the way. And if we weren't growing them, that's what we would be doing. But since we grew them, we cook them ourselves, and then we do a really big batch, and then we'll eat what we want to eat, and then we'll freeze the rest. As far as a recipe goes, everybody's got pretty much their own recipe. Some people will put a lot of seasoning in it. Some people will put some different things like salt, pepper, garlic. Some people put vinegar on their finished collards, and I think that's mainly because they harvested them early enough that before the first frost, and so they do tend to be bitter, so they put vinegar in them to sort of mitigate that bitter taste, and it does. I'm not a huge fan of that. I'd rather just wait till after the first frost before we eat them. And here it's early January, so we're still in early winter when this video is being shot. So we picked ours today, and they weren't perfect. We probably could have picked them a little bit sooner, but we just discard the yellow and brown leaves and things like that. And the other thing we do is we pull the stems off. So when we show the preparing, which is what's coming up next, then you got to understand that you We don't cook them with the stems on them. I have had them with the stems on them, and if you cook them long enough, the stems are fine. Stems are also really good for chickens because they have nutrients in there, and chickens like them a lot too. So we're going to, as we go along, give you the recipe sort of a little bit on the fly, even though it's not on the fly. So basically, you're going to have some sort of smoked meat. Now, what we do is when we smoke our bacon, or when we cure our bacon and then we smoke it, and then I trim it up. If we get a raw piece of belly, there's going to be a lot of side meat on that, and we just use that. You could cook that in green beans, lima beans, and all various and sundry types of greens as a seasoner, and it's awesome. But if you don't do it like we do it and make your own, there's a helicopter flying over right now. But if you don't do it like we do it and make your own, you can always buy it at the supermarket. They have a section probably in the middle of the back aisle where the meat department is, and it's got a table and it's got all kinds of smoked meats and salted meats on it. So that's what you want to use. You don't want to use fresh ham hock or fresh pieces of pork or anything like that, because it's really not going to do much. I mean, it'll put some meat in there, but it's really not going to do much. We're not putting it in there for the meat. We're putting it in there for the flavor. So we're going to give you based on a 3-gallon pot, because we probably picked every bit of 5 to 10 pounds of collards. That's going to be pre-cooked, and that's going to be with the stems on. So again, it doesn't all that doesn't go in the pot unless you're okay putting the stems on, and we take the stems off of our collards. We just snap them where the leaves start, and then we throw the rest to the chickens. Like I said, everybody's got their own recipe how they want to do it, and we don't put a whole lot of seasoning in it other than the side meat that we use. You could use salt pork. You can use smoked cured hock. You can use what's called in the South side meat. You can use jowl. You can use a smoked you can use some smoked country ham, although that's mighty expensive. And something else you can use to put in there, and we do a little bit, is we put a little bit of onion soup mix in there. So you can use Lipton onion soup mix, or the Knorr's, or you can make your own because the ingredients are on the box, and you put everything in it but the preservatives, and then you'll get some onion soup mix that way too. Now the other thing about these greens is they are a distinctly southern thing. So you folks from the north, you folks from other countries who don't know about cooking collards and kale, I would urge you to try it. We're in zone 7B, so it'll grow pretty much well in 7B. So I hope you learned something from this, and we're going to get started here in just a second. All right, first thing we got is, this is a 3 or 4 gallon pot, and you're going to want about 5 quarts of water in there, and then you're going to want to drop your side meat in. In this case, we're starting off with 8 ounces. This is from we cured and smoked this, and then I trimmed it off of the bacon that we had. And then you want to bring this to a boil, but it doesn't have to be a rolling boil, but you can let this sit in the pot for an hour before you put the greens in, because our next step is then to prepare the greens to go in.
And wait, once this comes to a boil, you want to turn it down to like a simmer, and just let it simmer, because you want to get all those juices flowing from that side meat. Okay, the first thing I did to prepare for these greens was I cleaned out my sink really well, and I'm using a double sink here, and you'll see how that happens. And then I also put a towel up here. This is for me to put the clean collard greens on. I also have a bowl on my island behind me where I'm going to throw the stems. So here's the process. Any of these bad leaves like this, We're not going to cook those. Chickens get those. If they've got holes, it's fine as long as they're green. And I'm just pulling these leaves off of here. I'm trying to leave this big stemmy piece on here. I can't. And even these little ones can be used. And so that is chicken food. And then, you know, throw them in here and wash them. And we don't use any pesticides or anything on our collards, so I don't have to worry about that. And you want to make sure you watch out for extra stuff that you might hit. Just make sure you don't cook that. I know you won't believe this, but when I first saw collard greens, I thought they were weeds. But they're not, and they are delicious eating. Get all this little. All this little stuff off. So there you have a stem. And we're going to do this whole bag, and we'll bring you back in once we've got a pile of them ready to go.
Now, I know what you could be thinking. You could be thinking all of those greens are going to go into that pot. Yes, they are. There's another way to do what Debbie's doing. We're just doing it for the video expediency sake as much as anything else. She's going through those little collards that we picked at the end. The second row, that was direct sow, and they did not do as well. I mean, the collards look fine, except that they're very small because they were direct sowed and just like literally a row of them, just seeds dropped in. So there apparently wasn't enough nutrient value for them to grow really big and strong like the other ones did. All that being said, this will all go into the pot because you wouldn't believe how fast these things cook down. So we've got the side meat. It started to boil a few minutes ago. And we're just going to let it sit there and boil for maybe 5 minutes or so. And then we're going to turn it down to a simmer. And we'll dump all these greens in and continue the journey.
Okay, so we cut it the water back, and it's to a simmer. And I've got 4 ounces here of Lipton onion, or it's onion soup mix, not Lipton brand. I bought this. It's organic. I bought it from a company. So I just weighed out 4 ounces, and I'm stirring that in, and you can really smell that meat and that onion soup mix. It smells delicious. Okay. And now I'm going to start adding in the greens. Now I am going to cut it back up, maybe about to medium. And you can't add these all in at one time, and not this amount. But believe me, they'll all fit in here. Push that down. See, that's a really big stem, so I'm not going to put that in there. And you can't probably pick it up on the phone, but it is boiling now. And your kitchen does get to be a mess with this.
But the payoff is worth it. There's so many nutrients and vitamins in these greens. They're super healthy. It's like collards and kale are superfoods. Now, one thing we've done before with kale is we've just put the top on, we just piled it up 6-8 inches above it and set the lid on top of it, and in just a couple of minutes it starts cooking right on down, and then the lid will just press the greens right on down in there. But this is for the sake of you folks who don't know anything about cooking greens and some of the things involved in them. But they will start wilting. There's also, we didn't put a ton of water in there. I think I said 5 quarts. And the reason we did not was A, to make the broth more concentrated, and B, because the collards and the kale itself, and this is just collards today, but kale's the same recipe. These greens have a lot of water in them. They have a lot of moisture in them. And of course we rinsed them off, but we didn't dry them off. So there's a lot of water there that is going to absorb in there and just turn into water broth in there. And I'm gonna tell you something else that if you don't know about it, is the broth is unbelievably delicious. Sometimes I just drink some of that myself.
Call it pot liquor.
It's called pot liquor in the South.
And they are going to change color once they're done too. They'll be a darker green, like really dark green. Just gonna let it cook down a little bit so I can stir it more. And it doesn't. I can't really tell you how long it takes. Depends on how much you're cooking, but you just want to keep cooking them, and you want to pull out a little bit and test it. They should be soft. They should not be chewy.
Yeah, they should be very soft. And we normally cook ours once it's all in the pot and it's starting to do its thing and everything's wilted up. You can cook them for anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour. Now, on a side note, where we picked all of these clean and washed them off, we've had between 5 and 10 pounds of greens. It only took us like 15 minutes. It's not an excruciating amount of time. The time comes into the cooking into a large degree. And as a result, but it's worth waiting for. And I'll tell you another secret. It's even better the next day.
Yeah, because that water level when I started was like about right here. Now it's about right here. Lost one.
Yeah, it looks like she's about gonna be putting the lid on it. And
okay, they're all in there. We're gonna let them cook for a little while, and we're gonna stir them every few minutes to get the ones on the top down on the bottom, and we'll show you what they look like in a little bit.
okay, just a quick update. It's been plus or minus 20 minutes, and we're still at medium heat. We're still boiling some, and we're stirring about every 10 minutes. Just to make sure all the collards get down into the broth. Once that's done, you know, and the collards are soft, it's done. It can vary. You can cook them a little bit faster, you can cook them a little bit slower, but it all tastes good. As a free added bonus from this video, I'm going to show you our fried cabbage. Debbie harvested this cabbage a couple of days ago, and then she fried it up in the frying pan with some bacon grease and some onions. And we tried it fresh, and I'm going to tell you what, it was almost impossible to keep from sighing. It was so good. It was delicious. So what she's done here is she's portioned it out into individual meals. And these individual meals will provide us with dinner and me for lunch the next day as a side vegetable. So in order to take the cabbage to the next level, what she's going to do is she's going to vacuum seal it, put it in the freezer, and then we'll have it for about the next 14 meals. All right, they are done. They cooked for a couple of hours. I'm not sure if you can see the depth of the pot. The pot is only a third of the way full. And we had all those collards in there, but they've been cooking on about a medium simmer after they boiled for close to an hour. And then they just simmered for another hour or so. And here's a close-up of a little bit. See how done they are? That's when they're really good. And I just tried some, and they are outstanding. Of course, I love greens anyway, and I hope you try this, because this is really something you can enjoy. And it's not hard to make. It takes a little bit of time, but it's not difficult to make. So thanks for watching, and thanks for visiting Variety Homestead.